Hello and welcome to Diaspora Connect on AAU TV. AAU TV is your trusted source of information with regards to higher education. And Diaspora Connect is the show that prioritizes the diaspora and their work in their home country. So today we are discussing the Year of Return Legacy Project, Obokese University of Excellence. Last year, 2019, the President of Ghana launched the Year of Return, and this was to mark 400 years since the first slaves from Africa reached Virginia, Jamestown. And it's been 250 years of slavery. But even as we acknowledge the past, we have to look into the future. And we can say that the future is Obokese University. Today, I have the sole privilege of interviewing Dr. David Whitaker, the Provost of Obokese University of Excellence. And his full name is Nana Kwamena Kra II, Tufohin of Atonkwa Elmina, to tell us more about the Obokese University of Excellence. I'm your sitting host today, BRIDGET DENTEH, sitting in for Schneider, Kweku, and Koma. And I must acknowledge that my dress is proudly sponsored by GTP Textiles Ghana, and they say still timeless. I'll be back shortly, and then we can get the conversation started. Do stay tuned. You're welcome back. If you just joined, you are watching Diaspora Connect on AAU TV, and you can follow the conversation on Facebook, Association of African Universities, and then on YouTube, Association of African Universities. Do well to follow all our social media handles for more information on our various platforms. Nana, it's a privilege to have you here today. You're welcome.
Oh, the privilege is all mine. I've been looking forward to it. I'm excited, and I can't wait to get started.
Wow. Okay, so then we are getting started. We'd like to know more about you and your work with Obokese University of Excellence.
Well, I am a career educator. I'm 76 years young right now. I have been a practicing attorney, having received my Juris Doctorate in 1991. I'm also a family therapist, having received my doctorate in educational psychology and also in 1991. So I may be one of the few people that you know that have completed 2 doctoral programs simultaneously. Wow. And graduated 1 month apart. So I've been a career educator. I've taught mathematics in secondary school, high school. I've been involved in college programs for school psychology, and I've had a legal practice, and I've been a chief in Atonkwa since February 2004. So I'm 16 years into my chieftaincy.
Wow, that's amazing. Some very good work you've done there. Congratulations on your 16th anniversary too. Okay, so we'd like to move on to the role of contemporary Pan Africanism in changing the narratives about Africa. So there's a lot of narratives about Africa, but what are the narratives and what supports all these negative narratives that we have about Africa?
Well, as you know, as you probably know, that the prevailing narratives of Africa have always been that Africans are backwards, Africans are way behind, Africans are unsophisticated, unattractive, unintellectual, not smart, and are less than human, if you really think about the essence of the narrative. So in the United States, African captives were treated as counted as 3/5 of a person. And Africans have been treated as if they were just one level above goats and cows in order to manage and steal from them. So those have been the prevailing narratives, and they will have to be changed in order for Africa to move forward. Those narratives have been created by people that came into Africa as invaders, subdued African people, stole African resources to make themselves wealthy. So in order to maintain that kind of control and theft, you have to somehow make the people feel as if they are almost deserving of mistreatment. And they should be happy to be alive and around people that are so smart, so intelligent, so creative, not realizing that the people are not smart and creative at all. They're just stealing from you and allowing you and forcing you to believe that that's the order of the humanity as created by God.
And then they even think we live on trees. They have no idea. Yeah.
Traffic, there's no roads, there's no stores. People still ask me today, how do I get around? What do I eat? I say, well, Africa has, Ghana has food. I eat fish almost every day. People still ask me, I didn't know they had fish there.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane, but it tells us how effective people have been to create this picture of Africans and Africa as being some place where people are so out of touch with things that are going on that they should consider themselves lucky to have enslaved them, because they would have died off if we hadn't enslaved them and protected them as if they were lost pets. So these narratives have to be changed.
Yeah. So I'm coming to that. How can we change these narratives? Because it has gone on for years. Generations and different generations have grown and have come to accept all these negative narratives. How can we change these narratives about Africa?
Well, it seems very, very complicated and difficult, but actually it really isn't if you analyze how these narratives work. Well, the Europeans in the late 1800s decided that they had been coming to the African continent for a while and had figured out that Africa had lots of resources, and those resources could be obtained by people if you were clever enough and you were businesslike enough and you could bring things that the African people hadn't seen. So you could trade a mirror for gold, and you could create this narrative that the people are so stupid you can give them a mirror and you'll get so many ounces of gold, so much gold for this silly little thing, not knowing that the Africans, the Ghanaians might have had so much gold, Mansa Musa had so much gold that you could afford to give gold for a mirror and it wouldn't bother you. But the Europeans' interpretation was that the people were immature, unsophisticated, and could easily be taken advantage of. But by 1885, 1884, in Berlin, they held a Berlin Conference, whereby all the European nations decided to carve up Africa like it is today. These African countries didn't exist before 1885. So Africa was just one big continent, but it didn't have a Ghana. There was no Togo. There was no Benin. There was no Nigeria, no Sierra Leone, no Ivory Coast, no Senegal. The Europeans carved up Africa and gave themselves different parts of the continent. Then they had to come in as warriors and invaders to take control of that. But they had a difficult challenge because they had to not only subdue the land from the people and subdue the people, but the people fought ferociously. Ya Asantewa and all numbers of people fought this ferociously because they thought like African people.
Yeah.
So, but eventually the Europeans subdued the land and subdued the people. And then they had to implement their own teaching strategies
Yeah.
to, over time, teach the people that it's better to be European. You'll be smarter if you mimic Europeans. Your country will work better if you do these things that we do. And they needed those things in order to extract the resources, the minerals for their own benefit. So over 100 years, see, all of the education that has gone on in Ghana and around the continent has basically been an educational system that's designed to teach everyone that it would be better for you if you were European.
Yeah.
If you wore European clothes, you would be better. If you bought European goods, if you understand the European heroes and sheroes. So you go to school, you learn about everything Europe that's glorified.
Yeah.
At the same time, African is minimized, it's made to appear inferior. So now you have lots of Ghanaians that will have grown up in the central region, the eastern region, the Volta region. They'll move to Accra, and you say, well, what village do you come from? They won't tell you. You don't want to be associated with the village that actually produced you. So you go to a big city and you want to hide in a big city as if you were always there in your cosmopolitan, your metropolitan, your modern. But meanwhile, the village that produced you and made you into the quality person that you are is being played down and played small. So these are the narratives that have been created and perpetuated by outsiders that want to continue to exploit Africa for its people, its resources, its minerals, and whatever advantages that Africa has. And Africa has a tremendous amount of advantage, resources, arable land, and things that everybody wants. They just don't want to pay for it, and they don't want to share it.
Yeah.
So that's how these narratives came into being. And now to undo that, we have to begin a process that teaches people what it means to be Pan-African, what it means to be African-centered. The history of African people is 5,500 years old before any African ever heard of a European person.
Wow.
So we have all of this history, Mansa Musa, the empires of Mali, the empires of Songhai, the empires of old Ghana. No one ever heard of a European during those times. So this actually has been a 500-year intermission to what has been a great epic story of proud, creative, masterful people that now it's been interrupted and we only know this narrative, but we have a narrative that runs for so long that we just have forgotten it or we weren't taught it. So now we have to revisit or Sankofa. We have to go back and get these riches that made African people great and made African people the envy of the world. It's not just African people. African people were the envy of the entire planet.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what Obokese University is proposing to begin this process. That's very important.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to come to that. It seems that education is the only means through which we can correct all these misconceptions about Africa, getting to know about Pan Africanism and all of that. But why is it imperative for there to be an Obokese University of Excellence? And what does it seek to do? Please tell us.
Well, it's imperative to have a university like Obokese University of Excellence. For one, African people, if you go back in historical times, African people are the model of excellence. If you go to Egypt or Kemet today, you see the remains of excellence in the pyramids, the tombs, the structures. This is excellence on display. So excellence is what we are noted for. It's not an exception. It's actually the rule. We have defined excellence. So that's one thing. The other thing you said is critical. Education is the only real answer. Why? Because humans function, almost 99% of what we know and do is learned behavior.
Yeah.
The show that you're doing right now, you weren't born knowing how to do this.
No.
You have learned it.
Yeah.
I wasn't born to be a chief. I have learned the aspects of a chief. A parent does not automatically know how to be a parent. Someone has to teach the parent. So human behavior is almost all learned, unlike a fish. A fish doesn't have to take swimming lessons. A bird doesn't have to take flying lessons. But humans learn everything that they know, except to cry if they're in pain, or to whine if they need to have a diaper change or something. Those things are automatic responses to behavioral or biological function.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, a child has to almost be taught to walk, taught to talk, taught to pay attention, taught to sit, taught to stand. Everything has to be taught. So however we are today, however you are right now on this show and myself, you're that way because of things you have been taught and things you have learned. So the whole consciousness that we have now that's not Pan-African, see, we've been taught that.
Yeah.
Someone removed the Pan-African thinking and the African consciousness and replaced it with what we have now, which is a love affair with European ideas, people, institutions, practices. We see it in Ghana in our court system. We see it in parliament. You see it on the highway. You see it with the police. You see it in the school curriculum. You see it everywhere you look, you see it. It's actually ironic to me that people will refer to me as Obruni when I come to Ghana, which suggests a foreigner.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't know why you call me a Bruni, because your dress is all European. Your names are all English or British. Charles and Francis, those are not Ghanaian names. Those are not day names. It's not Kojo, Kweku, Kwabena, Kofi, Kwame. Those are not your names. So you have Obruni names. You wear Obruni clothes. Obruni clothes are your regular business attire. You know, one day a week you can wear traditional clothing. So everything about you is Obruni, but you call me Obruni. So I said, everything you do is based on a love affair with Obrunis from the British, the French, or whatever. So this is all the way we have been taught to think. So an institution is required to start the process of thinking differently, so that we can return to the African mind and consciousness that will help us to progress and move the continent forward on its own terms.
Yeah. But how would Obokese University impact the African continent and the African diaspora?
Well, we have an ambitious plan. It might sound to people to be ambitious, but we know that there's a proverb that is used that says it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
Which is it's almost a cliche. It doesn't mean anything, but everybody says it. But what we don't understand, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a culture to sustain that village. And what does the culture do? So the school, Obokese University, has to become a mechanism where culture is reinforced and transferred. So what does culture do? Culture teaches you how to interpret reality. It teaches you how to behave. Like Ghana has protocols and procedures and correct ways of doing things about almost everything.
Yeah.
So it teaches you to be proper behavior. Culture also has to have a mechanism to support itself, manage itself, govern itself, and protect itself. And if you had culture working at its highest, so you wouldn't have the opportunity for so many foreigners to come into Ghana and come into Africa and make deals and make agreements and take all the resources and provide little or nothing, because that's not satisfying the cultural responsibility to protect itself and manage itself and govern itself. So, and finally, the culture has to transfer that knowledge to the next generation.
Okay.
So Obokese University will be structured around the notion, and it won't just be a university. We have an educational complex, a community that will start with children as young as 5 going to what we call primary school here,
Yeah.
secondary school, and through college.
Wow.
So you could be on this campus from the time you're 5 years old and you can graduate from college. And when you come out, we would anticipate that you will be well versed and very much ingrained with the notions of Pan Africanism, because Africa cannot sustain and protect itself as 54 different nations against outsiders who want things.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to protect yourself when you're not aligned with your other 54 neighbors against these outside interests.
Okay.
So that's what Pan-Africanism is about.
Okay.
African-centered education will put the African student in the center of the education process. So you interpret the education process to be all about you,
Yeah.
not you learning about the glory, the grandeur, and achievements of other people. It's telling you about what you have done, what your people have done, and we will instill the concepts of Ubuntu, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am, and the concepts of Azotzi.
Yeah.
Each person has a duty, responsibility, and obligation to move his village forward, his family forward, his nation forward, and his continent forward.
Yeah.
So that's how we plan to work at this. And we plan also to provide, we're conducting a needs assessment right now.
Okay.
To find out because most of the African continent is composed of young people just like yourself. The average age on the African continent is maybe 20 to 25.
Yeah.
So if you have a university, it has to respond to the perceived needs of the people that will be the recipients of it. Because it can't just be didactic teaching about history, because you can't take that information to the market and get cassava. You can't do it. So you have to have practical skills. So we're focusing on what will encourage young people like yourself to engage in this kind of study, and what practical benefit will it give to them in order for them to function today, right now, not some future date, but right now. So we plan to have on the campus working businesses. We're talking about the possibility of tilapia farming and with aquaponics. We're talking about other farming like pineapple or sugar cane or whatever might be needed, rice, whatever might be needed in the context of the day-to-day life of people.
Okay.
So it's a very practical process that we're proposing that will give students immediate skills to be implemented in their day-to-day life.
Okay. Now we're going on a break, and then when we come back, we want to get to know the courses and the digital platforms that Obokese University of Excellence will be operating on, as well as the mission and vision that we have skipped. Viewers, you're still watching Diaspora Connect on AAU TV. Do stay tuned. I know you're enjoying the conversation and you want to know more, but do stay tuned. I'll be back shortly. You're welcome back from that short break. We're still discussing the Year of Return Legacy Project, Obokese University of Excellence. And I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. David Whitaker, the Provost of Obokese University of Excellence. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Before the break, we were talking about Obokese University and what it stands to do for Africa. Now we want to know what the mission and vision of Obokese University is.
Well, the mission and vision I've talked about in maybe roundabout terms,
okay.
but it's to create, develop an African-centered consciousness
Okay.
in the minds of the students that will access the university either virtually or eventually we will have a facility that students will actually attend courses in a brick and mortar facility.
Okay.
But to develop the African-centered mind and the skills that are needed to move Africa forward using the African-centered Pan-African consciousness that will bring the African people together in a wholesome working relationship, one with the other, to move Africa forward and do what His Excellency Akufo has talked about, to create the Ghana beyond aid, or Africa that is truly sovereign. It will take people that are throughout the continent having the ability to see themselves as one people and have a consciousness that they will collaborate and cooperate with each other so that they can move the continent forward.
Okay. So I know Obokese University will run online platforms and certificate programs. Kindly take us through some of the courses we should expect from Obokese University.
Well, right now we're working to develop 4 main pillars.
Wow.
The one pillar, they're not necessarily in rank order 1 to 4, as if one is more important than the other, but I will call one pillar number 1 is we are developing the ability for the university to be an African continental emergency disaster center.
Okay.
So that the continent will have its first university that has a center devoted to dealing with, avoiding, or managing disasters that take place on the continent. COVID-19 will be an example, Ebola will be an example, flooding, or whatever disasters there are. So we are working with a professor at Howard University, and we are working towards the establishment of that center and also linking that center with all of the other African countries through the African Union so that we will have a comprehensive approach to dealing with disasters depending on the nature of the disaster and the region of the continent, because not every place on the continent has similar concerns when it comes to disasters. Some are flooding and others are drought. So that's one pillar. So we will have a community emergency disaster training, a CERT program for the community, whereby we would train young people like yourself to become certificated disaster management workforce, so that in the face of a disaster, people will not be running around with no idea what to do. So every community will be able to train people that will become their disaster management team until other professionals might arrive. So you will be like first responders. So that will be a certificated program that will evolve into a 1-year degree program, a 2-year degree program. And we anticipate that that will involve a large number of students who can be certificated in 16 to 20 weeks, and you could begin to do things immediately. So that's one pillar. Another pillar is a STEAM program: science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and mathematics. So we're working with 2 professional professional university people in the United States that have been working in the area of STEM and STEAM for a number of years. So our programming is going to start with some certificate programs that you could gain online, and then other programs that you could actually matriculate through the university as a 2-year program and even a 4-year program. So we're very excited about the development of that. All of these will start with digital online offerings that will be free and open to anybody that wants to access them. You don't have to be a student. The third area, we have the endorsement and support of the African Union. And the African Union has expressed an interest in working with the university in the area of governance and development and leadership. We're working with a professor at Kent State University that is also interested in helping with leadership, and a couple of other ambassadors from different countries that are interested in leadership. So leadership will be what we might consider our third pillar. And of course, the main pillar to drive the African-centered and Pan-African thinking will be African history. At this point in time, we feel that it's inexcusable for African people on the continent or in the diaspora not to understand the true, complete, comprehensive African story.
Yeah.
Because it's the absence of our knowledge of the African story that allows us to believe the narratives that have been promoted. If we knew our own story, no one could tell you that you're not beautiful.
Yeah.
No one could tell you that you're not smart. It's only because we don't know those stories. We don't know our own story. So we have been convinced to believe the stories that have been told because they've been told through television, movies, magazines, or images, or songs, or whatever. But we've been bludgeoned with these stories so much that we've decided to believe them.
Yeah.
But it's only because we don't know our own story. So that's a big, big part. So the teaching learning process will always be involving the story of what African people have done as we talk about science, as we talk about mathematics. If we talk about mathematics, for example, the Pythagorean theorem was not something that was discovered by Pythagoras. African people have been using this theorem long before Pythagoras was ever born. But since we don't know that, we believe the story. We believe the story that Euclid is the father of mathematics. Well, mathematics was invented by African people long before Euclid was ever born. But since we don't know this, we tend to accept that Euclid was the father, but he wasn't the father. He's a latecomer. All the math was already known by the time he was a little boy. So that's what we will be doing, so that our students, African students, need to feel proud to be African from the moment they enter a school. They need to feel that Africa has done everything, which it has. Africa has given the world everything, which it has. And the rest of the world has mimicked everything that Africa has done and packaged it differently and then sold it back to Africa as something that was invented by them.
Yeah. So now we can move on to the level of internationalization and of admission of students and staff. Is it going to be open to everyone can apply to Obokese University of Excellence and start schooling?
Now, when you say everyone, you mean everyone in the world?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone apply in the world?
Exactly.
Well, I don't think we can be accused of being discriminatory or preventing people to matriculate at the university. But it is clear in our minds that the university is designed to develop Pan-African thinking and to develop African-centered consciousness. So anyone in the world that is interested in becoming an African-centered thinker and a Pan-Africanist is a person that the university would like to work with and would welcome their participation. But our first effort would be to focus primarily on the African people. In this case, will be the Ghanaians,
Mhm.
because this principal initial school is going to be in Ghana in the Cebu traditional area.
Mhm.
So we certainly wouldn't deprive people in Ghana from attending, because we had people in the diaspora that were flooding the classes. And so we said the classes are closed. So we wouldn't do that. So the entrance and the teacher pupil ratios will be based upon what is our primary concern, but not driven by any desire to prevent other people from learning what it means to be an African-centered thinker and a
Mhm.
Pan-Africanist in behavior and consciousness. So that's how we will approach it. We haven't developed all these standards yet. We are going to use the 4 pillars that I mentioned
Yeah.
as part of the strength of our accreditation application, which hasn't been submitted. But
Yeah.
we're moving in the direction as quickly as we can to put the digital platform together and make it available, because that will be available to anyone, and people can get a good idea of what the university is about, and they
Mhm.
can determine whether it's something that they'd be interested in pursuing more in earnest as a student, or just take advantage of the offerings that are on the digital platform, because that's still a billion point 1.3 billion people in Africa that would have access to this, even if they never traveled from South Africa to go to this school.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, all right. So listening to you, one question keeps coming to my mind. If I attend Obokese University and I am taught everything about being African-centered, being Pan-African and stuff like that, after I graduate and I come back to the world, outside space, out of Obokese University, let's say the compound of Obokese University, how sure am I that the Eurocentric ideas will not influence and change my mindset about Pan Africanism?
Well, that will depend on how effective
Uh-huh.
the the instruction has been,
All right.
and how much of a critical thinker you have become.
Okay.
Because you at the present time, of course, there's no university like this anywhere.
No.
So that means if we think of it as a stream, the stream is all flowing in one direction, and we're going against that current.
Yeah.
So of course there will be people that will say things that are designed to discredit, diminish, somehow make you believe that the education that you received is not comparable to theirs.
Yeah.
But that goes on every day, all the time anyway.
Yeah.
A Harvard graduate thinks that they're much better than a person that graduates from UCC. They just think that. But the UCC graduate may be the most brilliant person in an area, and it has to be demonstrated. So we're confident that if you completed the program at Obokese University of Excellence, you will come out feeling that you are equal to, if not better, in your preparedness to deal with the world. And so you have a responsibility to not just fit into the world, but you have a responsibility to change the world. So that's going to be more difficult to do than it is to say. But look at me. I'm trying to change the world right now by helping to develop this university.
Yeah.
And I'm confident it can be done.
Yeah.
But most people would say there's no way it can make a difference. But people have said all kinds of things about me that I couldn't do that I've done.
Yeah.
People have probably said things about you that you couldn't do that you've done.
Exactly.
So we have to maintain confidence, and the university will develop that confidence so that the person never gives up, and you never stop trying to do what is right, and you
All right.
never stop trying to do what needs to be redone. And you may be the only person on earth that can do it. So that's your job.
All right. All right. So we are wrapping up here, and my final question is, what can researchers, the diaspora, academics, and other people out there do to support the Obokese University initiative?
Well, we can always use financial support to develop the programs, to
Yeah.
develop the infrastructure, to develop the construction. And we will be putting out a call for those professionals that demonstrate excellence to become part of the faculty, to
Okay.
become part of the instructional delivery system. Because if you have a university that says the Obokese University of Excellence, it better be excellent. Otherwise, people will argue that it's just a name and
Yeah.
nothing more. So
Yeah.
we intend for it to be excellent, not just be called excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Your final words, and then we can finish up.
I would just like to thank you and the members of AAU for allowing me to be on, because it's difficult for things to make a difference if nobody knows about them,
Yeah.
unless they're part of some secret plot. And this is not a secret plot. So this is something that we want people to be aware of. We want them to start thinking about. I wish I had, I have to give you the website address, obokese.org, I believe. I
Yeah.
should have been prepared with that to, to make sure it was correct.
We'll put it on the screen. It will be on the screen.
Good. So I would just like people to have an open mind and realize that there's a scramble for Africa today. The one I mentioned was 1884, 1885, after the Berlin Conference. But there's a scramble for Africa that's going on right now, where if you open your eyes and open your mind, you can see that outsiders or foreigners are coming into Africa, north, south, east, and west, and they're trying to gain a foothold. They're trying to make agreements. And we have to assume that their desire to be in Africa is not to help African people as much as it is to help themselves. And it's only our consciousness and our Pan African understanding and our African centered mind that will prevent people from taking Africa right out from under our feet.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
About.
Yes.
Yes, I appreciate those last words so much. We shouldn't sit down for Africa to be taken from under our feet. Thank you so much, Nana. We appreciate your time, and definitely we'll get back to you with more conversations about the Obokese University. Viewers, I know you have enjoyed the conversation. I know you have learned a lot. I know you are gearing towards, applying to attend Obokese University of Excellence, because I like to say that Obokese University of Excellence is the future. Thank you for staying tuned. My name is BRIDGET Amadente. I'll see you all next week.